Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. On behalf of Prolifics, I'd like to welcome you to our 2019 Panther Docker workshop. All right, let's go and first set the stage of today's workshop. The workshop will consist of two portions. The lecture section, which will introduce you to Docker and Panther Docker containers. Then the hands-on section, which will allow you to log into our Red Hat servers and perform a few exercises. Not only will you install a Panther Docker image, but you'll have the opportunity to take a legacy Panther screen and migrate it to the web using our latest migration utility. Our featured speaker today is Eduardo Ramos. Eduardo is a senior project manager at Prolifics and has been in the technology space for over 25 years. He has helped multiple customers shape their migration strategies and is currently working on a Docker container project. Without further ado, Eduardo, let me turn the presentation over to you.
Hey, Amrit. Good morning, good evening, everybody. I'm happy to be here. Let's get these show on the road. All right. So can you go to the excellent? So just wanted to take a couple of minutes to give you an introduction to Docker containers and compare them, their differences and similarities with virtual machines, which is virtualization technology that most of you are familiar with, I'm sure. Then we'll just talk about a few sample scenarios in which containers and more specifically Docker is useful. We'll talk about orchestration and what it does, and finally, and then we'll switch over to the demo and the exercises. So let's go to the next slides. All right, so a Docker container very broadly is just a standard unit of software that packages up code and all its dependencies, and it allows an application to run quickly and reliably from one environment to another. So, and what I mean by code and all its dependencies, this includes the certain version of the operating system, certain version of the different executables and tools, as well as a certain version of the shared libraries, and everything that you would need to have in an environment for a given application to run is packaged together in the container. Now, this is it's a little well, up to this point that sounds very much like virtual machines, and that is correct. But the one big advantage of containers is that images are composed of layers. So when after an application, once an application is packaged and all those different pieces that of the dependencies are in there, each one of those all of those dependencies are different layers, and when distributing the application, only the layers that have been modified or that are different from what has previously been distributed need to actually be transferred over through the network. So in other words, the images are not monolithic. So it's not there's a small change in the, I don't know, a configuration file in an application, then the only thing that needs to be distributed around is the layer that contains that the configuration file. And it is not necessary to copy around a huge image that contains the operating system again and everything. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. So this is a little this is a little diagram that illustrate the difference between containers and virtual machines. On the left, you can see containerized application, where at the bottom there's the infrastructure, let's say the hardware, then the host operating system, then the Docker runtime, and all the applications running in that or on top of that Docker runtime. Now compare that to the architecture of running this multiple applications in virtual machines. You can see that there's similarly there's the infrastructure, there's the hypervisor, and then on top of that, for each one of the applications, there is a copy of the guest operating system, and this difference in the architecture is what makes this is why containers are much more efficient. So it's not, I mean, it's typical to start or possible to start several containers in a machine and dynamically be starting more containers or stopping containers as needed. And on virtual machines, that typically is not a practical, is not practical. And let's go to the next slide. So some samples of use cases where containers are very useful. One big, I guess, one big area that it would be resource management. So what I mean is when you need to run an application in a cluster environment and you want those containers deployed either across one or multiple physical nodes, then containers, because they're lightweight, you can cram a lot more containers in each machine. Another so that's kind of where really containers really shine. Another example is when you have applications that require different versions of the underlying dependencies, like different versions of the database drivers or their shared libraries, or the or even different versions of the OS. You can run them on using Docker, and you don't need to have 5 different computers. You can just put everything on one computer, and they and these applications are going to run with isolated from each other. One thing that is that I hadn't mentioned before, but I'll mention it now, is that similar to virtual machines, the applications running inside of a container, they are essentially unaware of the other containers, and they just run isolated from whatever else is running on that machine or any other physical host. What actually takes care of the coordination is the orchestration layer. So let's go to the next slide. All right, and the orchestration layer takes care of performing, is the layer that it's actually aware of all the containers that are running. Containers are permanently reporting their state to the orchestration layer, and this way the orchestration layer can enforce different rules that you define for your cluster. So, for example, an example of such a rule would be if you want your application to run in a certain number of containers. You can say you wanted to run, let's say, in 5 containers, and then the orchestration layer will continuously monitor, be monitoring your containers, and let's say for whatever reason one of them crashes, the orchestration layer will spawn a new container to replace the one that crashed. Another example of a rule that you could set for the orchestration layer is that once a certain load threshold of load is reached, you may want to start your more containers running your application to handle the load, or fewer, which if you're your application is running in an environment where there's money associated to the usage of hardware, that's obviously an advantage. And another rule that you could set would be, for instance, when you need to update the application, and you need the application to have zero downtime of the application, you can use the orchestration layer to update first distribute the new version, and then replace the containers, even just one container at a time. So that way you're not overloading your environment because of the update. And that's pretty much what I wanted to cover. I don't know if you guys have any questions right now.
Yeah, feel free to have any to ask Eduardo any questions. He's available for the next few minutes.
Yep. And okay, then I'll turn it back to Amrit. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Eduardo. Alrighty, let's move on to the next slide. So with that being said, we have an idea what these Docker containers are all about. What we'll do next is, I think some of you guys do have access to Red Hat instances, but before we actually jump into the exercises, which I have on the slides, the different steps and parts we'll be covering, we'll actually do a quick demo of what you will be doing. So the first thing you get to do is actually install a Panther Docker container. As you know, we are releasing Panther 552, so you'll get to preview our Panther 552 Panther Docker containers. We'll also give you a little experience actually pulling a Docker container from Docker Hub, but you'll get the older version of Docker Hub today. Now, once you've pulled 552 and installed it, you'll be able to open up the Panther development environment, the Panther 552 dev environment. If you're 551 or 500, this all should look very familiar. In the exercise, we've got a couple of legacy screens prepared for you, a login screen and an order screen. So you'll open them both up, and then we'll actually get you to migrate them using our migration utility, and then be able to test the results out from your local browser, actually. In fact, the cool part about this whole exercise is all 6 or 7 of us will be logging into the same Red Hat instance. We're actually hosting it on our partner AWS. So we've got one AWS Red Hat server dedicated for today's workshop, but each one of you guys will be running your own Docker container. All right, so you'll have your own version of Tomcat, own version of Panther running, and you'll be able to access it from your own local browser, but everyone will be accessing it from a different port number. All right, and I'll be sending you guys your assigned port number shortly. So real quick, I've got a Panther team out there. Karti, you there? And I've got Suman and Karti. So Karti's going to flip over and just kind of give you an idea of what we'll be doing. And I know some of you guys wanted to stay on for this to just have a quick look at what we'll be doing in the exercises, and the rest, I'll send you guys instructions on these exercises. So let's go on to our Red Hat server, Karti.
Sure.
Okay. So like I said, we will all be logging on to using the same IP. In fact, if he's just using his remote desktop connection, we'll be logging in to this. Will be all logging in as root. Yep, with the same password. Okay, so once you open this up, you will land into our Red Hat home screen. There we go. All right, now some of you guys may be a little rusty with Linux, so don't worry about it. We'll help you out. We'll open up terminal windows using the applications terminal from the menu. A little slower, Karti. Just sure. Go up to the menu, please. Applications terminal, right? So that's how you open up your terminal window. So from these terminal windows, you will be installing the Docker containers. All right. So he's already got one opened up. So let's go ahead to your terminal window. And now Karti's going to actually, first thing he'll do is basically just, we'll test that. In fact, Karti, go ahead and just show them a couple of Docker commands here. Just make sure Docker is installed.
So just to make sure that the Docker installed, we simply type one command, and the name of that command is Docker itself. And you can see a chain of commands listed out over here. These are basically the suffix for Docker command that I just ran. It will give you the clarity that what all you can do with Docker, and some of these commands I'll be showing you right now in this session. So here you can see that I have a command named as images, which will list the images that I have already running on my local system. Let's consider this Red Hat system that we are running on as our local system, and run this command, docker images. So you'll see a couple of images that I have already created. One is Web 552, another one is Panther 552, and the last one you can see is RHEL. And the Docker container also needs a base OS that we use to run the complete instance, and that I'm using RHEL as a base OS for that. So the third one you can see right over there. And any doubts till now?
Okay, let's move on. So, like I said, Karti's kind of stepping through what you will be doing yourselves when you log into the server. So let's go ahead to the next section that they'll be doing.
So the next section I'll be going through is I'll try and pull one image that we have already pushed to our Docker Hub. Sorry, and that image has Panther 551 for web. So I'll just run a command docker followed by pull, and the third would be the name of my repo that we have pushed, and its name is prolifix panther /web, and I'll hit an enter, and you'll see that it will start pulling itself. It will download, extract, and it will compile itself also. So you just don't need to do anything. You don't need to configure anything. All you need to do is just run small little commands, and everything will be set. Everything will be set itself. This will take couple of minutes.
All right, so again, this is Panther 551, folks. And our latest is 552 that will be releasing in a couple of weeks. Let's go ahead and open up another terminal window and get them to run 552. So
Yeah,
Karti's
sure.
he's already got the Panther 552 image on this machine. So he's going to install it.
No, Amrit, I will not be installing it. As I just shown you the Docker images command, I already have it over here on this host OS.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the background, you can see that this also shows that Docker pull has been completed. So just to be sure that this image has been pulled, I'll run the Docker images command again, and I'll see 4 images now. So you see, I have 4: docker.io prolifix panther /web. Docker.io has been added because I have pulled it from Docker Hub. Uh, any questions? Okay. So since this demo is about 552, I'll run the image that has web version of 552. Before I do anything, let me just maximize my terminal window, and I'll recommend you to do that too. So I'll run docker run -p 8081. I'll run. Amrit, can you please help with the ports?
Sure. So since we've got 6 folks logging into this particular machine, everyone's going to be assigned their own port number. And I just sent you guys an email, those that will be logging into the machine. So you'll know your assigned port from that email.
So this will be followed by 8080. Why this will be followed by 8080 is 8080 is being run by Apache Tomcat that is already present inside the Docker container. The the prefix that I am using as 8081, that one is basically the external environment that will be talking to the external. That means on one hand, you as Eduardo just explained, this is kind of VM. So when you are running, when you are enabling this VM, you will be running 8080 inside of it, and when it will be communicating with the external world, it will be communicating with the port 8081. So you can really mix it up, and you can have multiple ports running at the same time, while the base OS will be running just one port, that is 8080. And since I am running Catalina with this, so I'll be running a detached version of my image. So I'll use this -d followed by my image name. You can just click on P and press tab. It will automatically come up with Prolifix Panther / sorry. Then type in W and press tab. So you'll have this similar command on your end also. Docker run -p your port followed by :8080 -d Prolifix Panther /web552. And as soon as you'll click enter, you'll see a alphanumeric code. This alphanumeric code is the container ID that is being assigned to your Docker container. Now, either now you can manipulate your Docker container either with this alphanumeric code, or you can use a name that is being assigned right now by Docker PS, or you can run Docker container ls. Either of them are fine. I'll run Docker PS, and there you can see I can see someone is also running with Docker 8080. No, 8084 someone has enabled. So and the name of that container is elegant panini and optimistic alien. This name is being automatically assigned by Docker backend. And here you can see that 0.0.0. So 0.0.0 says that you can have you will have no restrictions in connecting to the external environment. Like you can see, uh, Docker and your host OS will have no problems communicating with the term of localhost. But if I'll have to communicate in my local machine with the same IP, which is 3.89.238.172:8081, and I'll press and enter. So you can see that I have Apache Tomcat running, and that's just to verify that my Docker container is communicating with external environments. So it's just not restricted to localhost. All you need to do is just enable the port 8080 or whatsoever you are enabling in the Docker file. I'll show you later on the Docker file. I write over there expose xxxx. That that specific port I'll use the firewall to expose it to the external environments. That's why I can access Apache Tomcat right over here. Uh, eh, am I going fine right now? Or should I slow down? Any questions?
I think you're doing great, Karti.
Thanks, Amrit.
So are we ready to move on to the Panther environment then?
Yeah.
Great.
So to move on to the Panther development environment, I'll have to first of all enter inside the container that I have just created. So for myself, I'll be using this name that I have created with 8081 port, elegant panini. I'll run docker exec -ti. Exec is just basically execute short form, and TI stands for terminal interactive. Now I'll use the container's name, for which I'll just type in E and press tab. It will automatically load. it will automatically load, sorry, and followed by bash. Bash is very necessary right now because the container that I'll be landing in will be starting with bash, and this Docker command needs two parameters to start with. One is terminal interactive and the other is bash. So now I'll hit enter, and now you can see that this this alphanumeric ID that you saw is right over here. Though I use this container name, but I have the same container ID right over here and over here also. ProWeb is the username that I have created for this container. And now I'll be running ProDev. So you will see the same screen. I'll go to view, open library TFC. I'll open my screens.lib, and you can see that I have my screens right over here. And this is the order screen that I'll be using for to migrate and to use as a demo also. So let me get back to my local machine. The name of my Panther app that I have created is Panther demo with capital P and capital D. So I'll be using the same followed by orders, the screen that you just saw. So this is the screen that has not been migrated and doesn't use any bootstrap themes or any HTML at its backend. Or the other screen that we have is the login screen. So what I'll do is I'll just navigate using the login. So you can see the similar kind of environment and the similar UI also. Now I'll go back, open up a new terminal window and enter into my Docker container. So I'll use in the same command docker exec -ti. I'll have to check what the name was. I'll have to go for docker ps.
Something elegant.
Elegant panini. Yeah, thanks. Docker exec -ti elegant panini and bash, the same command that I followed earlier also. And you can see the same ID. I'm using it right over here also, and ProWeb. Now let's just do one thing. Let's navigate to the folder where we have the migration utility. I'll cd to test migration, and here I'll run the command for my Java utility that we have created. Oh, I'll first use ls. Here you can see that I have migration.jar present right over here. So I'll use the command java-jar migration.jar, and it will ask me for the screen library name, but not the library extension. The name of my library is screens, and the name of my screen is orders. So I'll press enter, and it says your screen has been migrated successfully. I'll go back, change it to orders. I forgot to make one change. Sorry. I'll have to first hide all this and enable this for export to HTML. So I have saved it. I'll go back, click refresh. Uh, and this sometimes it happens that we face an issue of cache. So what I'll do is to fix that, I'll key in my monitor command where I can restart my app. And my app is restarted. So I'll click refresh.
We'll just check the monitor list, Karthi, whether the app is running up and there. Just use monitor list once. So basically the scenario here is the screen which we are seeing at the background, the order screen. So initially you need to apply properties on the grid so that it is hidden as and export to HTML as, so that your HTML considers those columns as a data table. So once you apply those, your data table can be defined and thereby the actions get performed. So that is how the migration utility considers the screens. So now you can see that your screen is vanished from here. So how this happened is by doing hidden as property enabled, your grid gets get rid of from the screen, but export to HTML is necessary so that the values basically like the names that are generated for the grid, like I underscore one underscore the name of the column, or else in the for the push buttons we'll be having SPI underscore I underscore. So these are the names that are generated by the Panther when you get into HTML. So that is why we need to apply those.
I think, Karti, let's go ahead and try and get access to the folks that are waiting. As far as finishing the exercise you were showing, it's all laid out in the instructions. I think they'll get an idea. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Amrit,
yeah.
I'm here.
Yes.
I am here. I can complete it.
Okay. I apologize, guys. We've kind of gone over time. I know we allocated an hour for this, but if you are fine with staying on and walking through the exercises, we are no problem on our end. I think what would be useful at this point, Subhan, is let's step through those templates.
Yes, Amit.
Yes.
Karthike, just try to open the migration.
Right.
Yep.
So, by the way,
Karthike.
I don't know whether it was clear, but the migration utility comes installed in your samples folder. Under the samples folder, you'll see a migration folder, and it's just a jar file. All right. Thanks, Draghi, for your message. Okay, and this is our working directory. So go ahead, Subhan.
Yep. So as you can see, I mean, as soon as you run the migration utility, So the files which will be coming up automatically are the login HTML and login JS, as well as the ASCII file of it, and a login emit.txt in a web folder for which we have configured the properties. So if we just try to navigate to login folder, so this folder is created automatically based on your screen name. So if your screen name is dashboard, a folder will be created of the name dashboard, and in that you will be having these 5 files. And let me just go through each file. So the first file you are seeing login is the ASCII version of it. So I mean we can just leave that out. So I mean which will be not of use. So just exit from there. So which will be for our reference. I mean we don't deal with that thing. But the second one is the HTML, and in this you can see a minimal template of HTML is written, which comes automatically. So this is done in our template HTML and template JS files, which I'll be showcasing you later. So this can be modified by you as you like to. So but you can see the minimal HTML code requires the form tags which are necessary for a Panther screen to run, and adjust a div for a data table if you have. That's it. So I'm not having much HTML that is coded here, and the end you can see script source login.js. So this is generated automatically by your screen name. So if your screen name is dashboard, the dashboard JS will be automatically pointed here. So if you just now try to navigate to the JS file, so now login.js is the file which is created. So here you can see we are using jQuery and the combination of a bootstrap for building a data table. So basically the build grid function loops through all the columns that are on your Panther screen. So how our utility helps and reduces the time here is when you need to migrate a screen which is busy in the sense you have a grid, you have single line text fields, you have push buttons, and a lot more on a screen. You need to manually go read each field's name and write it on the HTML, whereas our utility loops through all the fields automatically. It goes through all the grids, each column name, and it creates the grid for you. As you can see, this is the code that is generated. So for login screen we don't have any grid, so you can see that there is no description of columns and all. But if we run the migration utility for order screen, which we can just do, so just quickly run the migration for order screen from the terminal. And this can be customized based on the UI, or else the color combinations, or else the button classes which you want to. You can modify as you like to. And all screens whichever you'll be migrating, whether they are 100 or 200, each screen will be taking the template into consideration. So there is no issue with the changing of the utility. You can modify it as you like to. Just run the migration utility for order screen. So this is the command which we run for running the migration, and the library name, as Karthike already explained, without extension and the screen name. So once it is created, so if your files are already present there, it will ask you for a confirmation whether you need to override them or not, so that you don't step up on your toes. Like, I mean, if you are already having changes, you don't want to miss them, so you can have a notification here. So if you want to override them, just type yes and click enter. Your files will be overridden. Just try to navigate to the folder of the orders. So now I'll showcase you the JS of order screen, how our utility builds the grid, because grids are the major widget terms on the Panther screen. So we can deal with the single line text and push buttons pretty much easily compared to grids, because they are of single names and all. But if you come to a grid, it will be very busy, and you'll be having each and every column a name that needs to be considered by your HTML and JavaScript as well. So just open order.js. Order.
Yeah,
You
I think
misspelled it. So if you just observe it clearly, each and every column name of your grid are considered here. So we didn't do any manual work here. We didn't even go to the column name or else read any name or else typed it anything. So our utility loops through all the columns, whether they are 10 or 20, all columns will be considered. And you can see each column is being initialized in a variable, and we are setting a value which is JSON obj. So here you can see that a data table is being created which actually sorts it into a JSON object. So that is how the data table comes up. The UI which you just saw previously when Karthikeya showcased the screen, that came up due to this. So this whole JavaScript is run when your screen is loaded from the HTML. So if you just now go to HTML, you don't need to write anything in the HTML, just but a one line, that is a div which will be having the grid name. So your grid name will be taken into consideration. So we just go to the HTML of order screen. Yep. So the only line which you need for your grid to be shown is table ID equal to view orders grid, and we are applying a class by default, that is table strip. And notice that these are bootstrap classes which we are applying for it. So if you want to tweak any other UI that is available there, either WT or else in the UI which you are familiar with other than bootstrap also, you can modify it. So it is full-fledged, and it is dependent on you, like how you want your screens to be having look and feel. And that's it regarding these HTML files and all. So now we'll just navigate to the templates which we are by default having, so that to showcase you how we have tweaked them. So navigate to templates folder. So in the, as soon as you get the 552, you will be having some set of files that are related to the migration, which are like a config properties file, and we'll be having a detailed instructions to navigate to you, and you will be not messed out with any of the configurations. So if you just try to see grid template.html in a VI mode. So this is the main template which takes all the screens into consideration. So whenever you run a migration utility, this will be taken into picture, and for every screen, as you can see, include header is given and include footer is given at the bottom. So these are the default ones for loading your CSS and JS files. So we are pre-building everything for you. And if you see at the end, the script source, we are using a variable here, $JS name. So our utility takes this $JS name into consideration with matching the screen name which is of yours. If it's a login screen, login comes here, and if it's a dashboard screen, dashboard comes here. So this is just a template which is being used for each and every screen. Just get out of here and go to navigate to config properties. So now I'll just show you the config properties, like the minimal configuration which we do. So you just need to point the paths where your Panther is, or else where your templates are, which we are given to you. So this is our config properties file, and we have a detailed instruction here too, as well as a document which will be provided with 552 when you get it. And you need to just point the library path, that is libbase. You need to point the util path, that is your Panther directory structure, and the JS and the HTML templates. So all this is just required for your migration utility to run, and you can just go for your web application pretty much easily. And as well, the Docker is the main thing which comes into picture. You just need to pull an image, go into it, and just run your web application then and there. No configuration, nothing. We are pre-building for you. So if you need any modifications into your application, you can do that. But everything comes into picture, just 2-3 commands to run to.